41 points, 12 assists, and 7 rebounds. That's how Deni Avdija introduced himself to the postseason in his very first playoff appearance. One game completely changed the conversation around Portland.
And it playing for the Suns. The dish, the try, in, hit, score, foul, and the Blazers by 1.
That performance helped send the Blazers back to the playoffs for the first time since 2021. And suddenly, Avdija jumped all the way to third on the all-time list for highest scoring play-in games in NBA history. Crazy, considering most casual fans barely even knew his name a few months earlier. After spending 4 quiet seasons in Washington without much attention, Deni slowly turned himself into a full-blown star while almost nobody was watching. No huge headlines, no non-stop media coverage, just pure work behind the scenes. But now, the entire basketball world is waking up, and NBA legends keep repeating the same thing.
Right. You know, he made the All-Star team out of Portland, and I didn't think, Portland had nobody that was All-Star worthy coming into the season.
Right.
And so I'm taking notice to that. Then you playing the All-Star. Then I check this game out. I'm like, all right, okay, Deni Avdija, he's a threat in this league. Yeah. He's a true threat.
He's a killer, bro.
He's a true threat.
You gotta plan game plans around stuff.
Yeah. So now I know this kid's name.
Deni Avdija is becoming a serious problem for the league. And honestly, the wild part is how fast everything changed. 1 week, people barely mentioned him. Then suddenly, former players and analysts couldn't stop talking about him. Even some legends admitted they didn't fully realize how good he had become until right before All-Star Weekend. And that says a lot about the situation he was in. Deni spent years playing in a smaller market on teams with low expectations, without a superstar teammate bringing national attention every night. For a long time, he was hidden in plain sight. But eventually, the numbers became impossible to ignore. This season, Avdija became the first NBA All-Star from his country in league history while putting up career-best numbers across the board. He averaged 24.2 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 6.7 assists per game, while becoming one of the toughest matchups in basketball. But it wasn't just one former player noticing the rise. Danny Green, one of the best 3-and-D veterans of his era, got asked a simple question: how do you stop Avdija from constantly getting to the free throw line? And honestly, his reaction said everything, because right now, Deni is attacking defenses nonstop.
Like,
every time.
You just can't stop him from getting downhill to that right hand. We seen him get to the left hand one time. We seen the layup.
Yeah.
Smoke the layup. Like, not saying that he'll smoke every layup, but you gotta at least make him go to his weak
right
hand.
dominant. Yeah, for sure.
So if I'm them, and if he's gonna go by me, it's gonna be that way.
Got you.
And you gotta finish over my big man. Hopefully he's a good big man at the rim that can protect. But because he shoots the three well enough, especially if he has it rolling. Like, he hits step back threes. He doesn't really take many mid range. He's gonna draw contact and foul. You got to play. He's like a young Harden, like when how James get downhill and draw foul. Like, he's like that. So you can't let him get to that right hand. You can't let him get into your body and draw fouls. You got to be smart, and you got to make him finish over the top. So I'm trying my best to not let him get to that hand.
The 25-year-old finished second in the NBA in free throw attempts at 9.2 per game, only behind Luka Doncic. That number exploded compared to where it was just one season earlier, and defenders have clearly been struggling to adjust. But this wasn't even new for Danny Green. Months before the All-Star game, he was already publicly pushing for Deni to get recognition, even bringing up comparisons to LeBron James because of the all-around production. So what exactly started making people pay attention once they finally watched him closely? That's where Isaiah Thomas really broke it down. The biggest weapon is the pressure he puts on the rim every single possession.
Well, he's the most physical guard, point guard that's playing in the NBA right now. I mean, you look at him, he does everything. He's got 16 points, 8 assists right now. But here's why he's so effective. He loves contact. He will take the contact, he initiates it, but when he initiates it, he's strong enough to score and get to the foul line.
Avdija led the entire NBA with 19.4 drives per game, and those attacks generated 3.8 free throw attempts per night just from relentless rim pressure alone.
You got to send 2, and when you send 2 to double team him, and if you cheat a little bit, he's a great passer, he finds an open man, And not only does he find the open man, but then he can play off screens, he can catch and shoot, give you a little bump, a little up and under. You know, he has the total package. And when you look at him, you don't think of him as being a great player. But right now, the way he's playing the game, he's one of the best guards that's playing in the NBA right now.
And in the play-in game, that aggression was everywhere. He went 8 for 13 from the free throw line while constantly finishing through contact, forcing defenders into ugly situations possession after possession. Some players avoid contact. Deni runs straight into it and still scores. And make no mistake, drawing fouls at that level is a real skill. Some people complain about it, but the greatest scorers in NBA history always knew how to control defenders, force mistakes, and create pressure at the rim. That's exactly what Avdija is doing right now. And if teams think throwing double teams at him automatically solves the issue, it really doesn't, because once he gets downhill, he's reading the floor better than ever, finding open teammates and making defenses panic. That's why so many former players keep saying the same thing about him now. He has the total package. 5 simple words, but coming from one of the greatest point guards ever, that statement carries serious weight. Still, not everybody has been celebrating the rise. Some critics around the league have questioned how often Avdija gets to the line, with debates starting online about whether his style crosses into foul baiting territory. Others argue he's simply mastered one of the hardest skills in basketball, putting defenders in impossible positions and forcing contact naturally through aggressive offense. Either way, one thing is becoming impossible to deny. Deni Avdija is no longer flying under the radar anymore. But Udonis Haslem heard all the criticism and shut the entire conversation down instantly. This is a guy who spent nearly 20 years representing toughness, discipline, and old-school basketball mentality with the Miami Heat.
No foul baiting tonight. I mean, he gets 31% of his points from the free throw line. He was not foul baiting tonight. He was getting downhill, taking the contact, and finishing over people. So I don't hear nothing about foul baiting about Deni Avdija.
Also,
I don't hear that.
He wasn't some random analyst throwing hot takes around for attention. So when Haslem looked at Deni Avdija and immediately called him a superstar, people paid attention fast. And honestly, once you really watch Deni play, it starts making sense. Because the scary part about his game is how many different ways he can hurt teams every night. Some games he's controlling everything with his passing, other nights it's the scoring, the shot creation, or the non-stop pressure attacking the basket. But the one thing that never changes is the aggression. Nobody recognized that quicker than Dwayne Wade. Wade knows exactly what elite confidence looks like when a player wants the ball in big moments.
Sits in this chair, UD. I'm going to start with a UD-ism. All right? He says, it can't be on you, it got to be in you. And that's exactly what it is when you look at Avdija. It's in them. A guy who has made a big jump from obviously 16 points to 25, almost 26. That's an 8-9 point jump. It's his confidence. It's his opportunity. A new environment for him. And so when I look at him, I see size and skill. I see a guy who makes quick decisions, which is great with a guy who has the ball. And a guy also, too, that does everything with purpose. And that's what you want to see out of a player like this. There's somebody that you want to build around.
He built his entire career on attacking defenses downhill, finishing through contact, and creating offense when nothing looked available. And when he watched Deni, he clearly saw pieces of that same mentality. The burst to the rim, the physical finishes through defenders, the ability to force chaos once he gets downhill. That's the language Wade spoke his entire career. But with Deni, there's another layer that makes it even tougher to stop. At 6 feet 8 inches, he's doing all of this with the size of a forward while moving like a guard. That combination of speed, strength, and agility creates nightmare mismatches every single night. Smaller guards can't stop his physicality. Bigger forwards struggle to stay in front of him once he gets moving. And once he builds momentum, defenses start panicking fast. That's why the nickname Turbo fits perfectly. And if you've really been paying attention, you've probably noticed his signature attack move already. The second defenders lean too far outside his frame. He quickly pulls the ball low, explodes through the gap, takes 2 hard steps, and powers straight to the rim. The crazy part? Defenders know it's coming and still can't stop it consistently. And once a player becomes that difficult to guard, the comparisons start getting serious. After Deni dropped 30 points on Milwaukee last season, Shaquille O'Neal watched the highlights and reacted by saying he looked like Tony Kukoc out there. That's not some casual comparison either. Kukoc was one of the original matchup nightmares in NBA history. A massive forward with guard skills, elite passing vision, and the ability to completely confuse defenses. He helped redefine how European players were viewed in the league during those championship Chicago teams. And that's really what people are starting to see with Avdija now. A bigger player who moves like a guard, reads the floor quickly, and constantly forces defenses into impossible decisions. Except Deni is bringing even more downhill speed at just 25 years old, which makes the ceiling feel even crazier. He's still entering his prime, and people around the league are starting to realize this jump might only be the beginning. By this point, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The relentless drives, the rim pressure, the playmaking, the mismatches, it all came up when LeBron James and Steve Nash started breaking his game down during a basketball discussion. They were talking about which players made the biggest leap this season, and Deni's name came up immediately.
He's a physical driver to the rim. And if you don't have a body in front of him, if you're on the side of him, then he's going to get that foul call. You know, he's super physical, especially going downhill to his right hand. And like you said, he's worked a lot on his outside shooting too. You know, when he was in Washington, that's the one thing he did have. He's always had this speed with the ball, very fast with the ball, downhill to his right hand, big body, big wing. But this year in particular, I've seen him expand his range and make some shots from the perimeter at a more consistent rate. And it's resulted in him having a breakout career year so far.
Nash pointed directly at the efficiency jump and how dangerous Avdija becomes once he starts attacking downhill.
Backing down, leaning. Bottled up, Deni gets free, drives it into contact, lays it up and in. Deni Avdija draws contact.
Then LeBron pushed the conversation even further by talking about the growth in Deni's scoring package and overall physicality. But maybe the most important part wasn't even the scoring. It was the basketball IQ. Nash praised the way Deni reads defenses, makes quick decisions, and consistently finds the right pass under pressure. Then LeBron mentioned that Washington probably regrets letting him go because players with this kind of growth trajectory are extremely hard to replace. That's real respect right there. When two of the smartest players the NBA has ever seen start praising your feel for the game publicly, people around the league notice immediately. And the strongest cosign of all didn't even come from a podcast or TV segment. It came directly from an opponent. On the same night, Deni exploded for 41 points against him. But Kevin Durant saw it up close for himself, and even he sounded shocked. Afterward, backing defenders down, absorbing contact, finishing through pressure, Deni Avdija was completely taking over the game possession after possession. And after battling him all night, Durant gave him one of the biggest compliments possible. Deni is playing at an all-star level. He's a great player. But then something interesting happened. Durant started to say, Deni is going to be a star, senor, then immediately stopped himself and corrected it. He already is one. That little correction said everything because KD has spent nearly 2 decades competing against the best scorers on earth. He knows the difference between somebody getting hot for a few weeks and somebody who has truly reached another level. And what he saw that night clearly convinced him this wasn't temporary anymore. Durant saw the full package, the downhill attacks, the physical finishes at the rim, the improved three-point shooting, the growing confidence in the mid-range game, and maybe most importantly, the ability to still produce when defenses are completely locked in on stopping him. That's superstar pressure right there. And then came the biggest moment of Deni's career so far. Portland was down 11 points in the fourth quarter with a playoff spot hanging by a thread. The pressure was massive, the crowd was loud, and every possession suddenly felt like survival mode. But Avdija never looked scared for even a second. Instead of backing off, he attacked even harder. He kept getting downhill, forcing contact, putting defenders under pressure, and slowly dragging Portland back into the game possession by possession. Then, when everything tightened late, he completely took over. 5 of Portland's final 7 points came directly from Deni, including the huge go-ahead and one finish with only 16 seconds left on the clock. That's not empty stats anymore. That's winning basketball under pressure. And while it was happening live, Kendrick Perkins could barely hide his reaction. He said Deni showed the entire basketball world he has the clutch gene.
But when we talk about Deni Avdija, yes, he's in the conversation for most improved, but what he has done this season, he has played at an all-NBA level. Scott, no one expected the Blazers to be here. He has been one of the best stories in the game of basketball. An elite 3-level scorer, a guy that you could go to in the clutch, a guy that's not scared of the moment, a guy that's not backing down from anybody. This was a physical Phoenix Suns team led by Dylan Brooks, and Deni Avdija did not back down one bit and had the game of his life on the biggest stage of his young career.
And honestly, you could feel it watching the game. The ball stayed in Deni's hands late because everybody in the building already knew where Portland trusted him most. Coaches knew it, teammates knew it, even the defense knew it, and they still couldn't stop him. Then the history books made the moment even crazier. Avdija became the first player in NBA history to record 40-plus points and 10-plus assists in a single play-in game. That's legendary company already. And after the final buzzer sounded, maybe the most revealing reaction came from right inside Portland's own locker room. Drew Holiday, a two-time NBA champion known for keeping things calm and serious, looked at Deni's performance and summed it up with just a few words.
Deni coming out here and carrying us, especially down the stretch, getting that winning bucket and being able to go home knowing that we're playing San Antonio is something that you love to see in Deni because this is what we expect from him now. So.
An off night. That's insane when you really think about it. An off night somehow turned into 41 points, 12 assists, and 7 rebounds while shooting 68% from the field and 38% from deep. Add in the clutch takeover late in the fourth quarter and the game-winning sequence, and suddenly the joke hits even harder. Because if that was considered an off night, what does a truly great night even look like? And honestly, that line perfectly captures how much Deni's reputation has changed this season. Not long ago, people mostly viewed him as a decent role player, a solid young piece, useful, versatile, tough, but nothing franchise-changing. Now, that entire conversation is gone. Avdija entered the NBA as the 9th overall pick and spent 4 seasons quietly developing without much national attention. A lot of people labeled him as a player with potential but never expected him to become the centerpiece of a team. Then Portland handed him the keys and everything exploded from there. The confidence changed, the aggression changed, the freedom changed. Suddenly people started seeing the version of Deni that had been building behind the scenes this whole time. Now he's the clear face of the franchise, a first-time All-Star and one of the strongest candidates for Most Improved Player, all at just 25 years old. And the craziest part? It still feels like he's climbing. That's why so many former players and analysts keep talking about him differently now. They're not speaking about him like a nice young talent anymore. They're speaking about him like somebody defenses genuinely fear preparing for. Because once Deni gets downhill, the pressure becomes non-stop. He's too strong for smaller defenders, too fast for bigger defenders, too aggressive to play soft coverage against. And now that the jumper and decision-making are improving too, teams are running out of easy answers fast. That's why the Turbo nickname feels more accurate than ever. Once that engine starts rolling downhill, everything speeds up around him. The pace changes, the defense collapses, rotations break down, and suddenly Portland's offense looks completely different. But now comes the part that could take this entire story to another level, because waiting for him in the first round is maybe the toughest possible matchup in basketball right now. A showdown against Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. And honestly, it doesn't get much harder than that. Wembanyama has already turned himself into one of the most terrifying rim protectors in the entire league. His length changes everything around the basket, and attacking the paint against San Antonio has become a nightmare for almost everybody, which makes this matchup fascinating. Because Deni's biggest biggest weapon is relentless downhill pressure, while Wemby's biggest weapon is destroying everything near the rim. Something has to give. Can Avdija keep bullying his way into the paint against the league's most dangerous shot blocker? Or will Wembanyama completely shut the door on Portland's attack? That's the test waiting for him now. And after the breakout season Deni just had, this series suddenly feels a lot bigger than people expected a few months ago, because the basketball world is finally paying attention now, and Deni Avdija looks ready for the spotlight.